Before anybody freaks out, no, these characters are not dead. I just want to make that very clear, but their story is essentially scrapped. It was a tough decision. Today I thought I would just kind of talk you guys through the process, tell you why, and maybe it'll help someone out there in a similar position. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. So I had a lot of back and forth about not only this video, but just the story in general. First off, I went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to even scrap it and start over. I'll get into it a little bit later, but this was essentially my first story, so I was a little bit attached to it the way that it is, even though I wasn't really happy with how it was, at least at this point in my life. And so because of that, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to make changes, but I mean, I did. That's why we're here. Hi. And then after I decided that I did want to change the story and just the whole world and them, I went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to even make this video. I thought about just scrapping the story, starting from scratch and working on it in my own time, and then talking about it when I had more of like a solid, at least a more solid concept for the new world that they live in and the new story that they're going to be a part of. But I thought I should talk about it, to let you guys know that a lot of things have changed, like a lot. So since you all are invested in these characters just as much as I am, I figured I should give you a heads up. But then also I kind of wanted to talk about the journey I went through. That sounds so dramatic, but it's the best way I can put it. I guess just my thought process of why I didn't want to change it, why I decided to change it, what changed between me liking the story and not liking the story, and anything along those lines. Because I mean, a lot of my subscribers, yes, you, hi there, I see you. A lot of you guys are like me, where you're artists, writers, or both, and a lot of you guys might be struggling with this same sort of issue of not wanting to change a story that you used to like. So that's today. No, since I'm a writer, you would think I'd be better at talking, but alas, here I am. So I just wanted to talk about how my relationship with the story has changed, what I plan on doing, and all of that. So let's go. In the title, I used the word bittersweet, and I definitely think that's the best way I can describe changing a story that you once loved. Because on one hand, like, you have such an attachment to the way that the story once was. But then on the other hand, you've changed as not only a person, but an artist and a writer. So in the end, changing it would be for the best because you've grown and improved. And it's a struggle, especially for me with this story, because this story was essentially my first story. Here's a little bit of Oliver's Antics trivia for you. My first two characters are my characters Jeremy and Aurora. Aurora more specifically, but I made Jeremy around the same, my voice crack, oh my god. I made Jeremy around the same time period, so I kind of just lumped them in together. And I have made characters before that, but I made them when I was 11, and they're the only characters that I've kept. They're the oldest characters that I've kept, so while they're my first characters, essentially, their story didn't come until much later when I decided to revamp them and stuff. My dog is being so crazy in the background. Oh my god. Anyways, can I film this video for fuck's sake? Their story didn't come until much later, until I decided to redesign them and rework them and all of that stuff. But Andy and the gang, that's my first story. That was the first group of characters that had a plot, I guess. And because of that, I had a really big attachment to the characters. My dog. It's not even 12 yet. Because this was my first story, I had a really big attachment to how the characters were and how the story was the way it was, and I really loved it at the time, but I don't anymore. And it was really hard to kind of accept the fact that I fell out of love with their story, and there's a few reasons why. I'll talk about that with you. But it sucked a lot, and I had the same sort of issue when I decided to redesign the main character, Andy, because, like the story, I was really attached to how they were then, and I was also kind of worried about what you guys would think subconsciously. Not to like make you guys feel bad or anything, but it's just that you all are so invested in my characters and my stories, and I'm really, really grateful for that. But then at the same time, it can put this sort of pressure on me to not make any changes that I think are necessary, especially the more drastic ones. Like, if you think about the plot of the story, you guys know the general synopsis, but you don't know about specific scenes and stuff, or like the way that certain characters change change throughout the story. And so those things I can change a lot more comfortably because people aren't attached to them and invested in that. But then when it comes to like the general overarching plot and themes, and even just the general vibe of the characters, I always get super reluctant to change those because you guys all are so attached to them and I don't want you guys to hate them now. But like I said in that video, or at least I'd like to think I said it, I don't remember. I don't watch my videos. They're trash. But you guys want me to have fun with art, and having fun with art is the whole point of art. So that's kind of the same conclusion I came to here, that changing it would be for the best. So what is it that made me not feel the same way about my story? Well, I thought about it and tried to like really figure out what it is that I didn't like about it anymore. And I came to a few conclusions. One was the genre of the story. When I was thinking about this story and why I didn't like it anymore, it kind of dawned on me that there's a difference between what you enjoy watching and what you enjoy writing. I feel like if you enjoy writing certain characters or writing certain types of stories, you also enjoy watching them or reading. I'm speaking as if this is a show, but I also never really noticed before that there are certain types of content that I enjoy consuming but don't necessarily enjoy making. And I think that Andy's story is a perfect example of that, because if you think about Andy's story and then all of my other stories, it seems out of place. So we have characters like Jeremy and Aurora, where they're literally demons and angels and it's very edgy. And then we have my soon-to-be webcomic story that I'm working very, very hard on. It's about like humans and beasts, I call them, like any sort of fantastical creatures. Like 3 of the main characters are a vampire, werewolf, and a jackalope. And it's very, very fantasy-like. And then we have Aspen, Milo, and Bishop. They take place in like a sort of zombie apocalypse-like universe. We have characters like Arietta and Robin and that whole gang where they're witches. And then we have Angie's group where they're people. And that's about it. And I definitely enjoy consuming content, whether it's like a movie, an anime, a book, whatever. I definitely enjoy consuming content where it just takes place in the real world and everyone is just average people, and it's great. But in terms of what I enjoy writing, that is not typically what I go for. And as you could probably guess, I enjoy things that are very much not set in reality, especially the more fantasy adventure type stories. And even my zombie apocalypse universe, it's not exactly a zombie apocalypse universe, and it is a bit more, maybe fantasy isn't the right word, but I guess sci-fi. Instead of just like a straight up zombie apocalypse where you're just murdering zombies and stuff, there's a lot more like intricate parts to it, and it's not exactly zombies. It's a whole thing. Go watch their videos if you're interested, but they all sort of fit that sort of adventure fantasy type theme. And you guys might have even noticed, as people who watch my videos regularly, or even just every now and again, you probably have noticed that I've drawn the characters in this story a lot less over time. Like, that is because I fell in love with my other stories a little bit more, I guess, because they do have this more imaginative aspect of them, I guess. So as a result, I tend to enjoy drawing those characters a lot more. Even if they are characters who, I guess, dress in quote-unquote more normal clothing and stuff like that. Just having that more, like, creative heart, I guess, behind it, and having that more, like, imaginative, fantastical world that they live in, it just makes me more excited to draw the characters, and these characters don't really have that. They just live in a world. And while there isn't necessarily wrong with any of that content, like I said, I enjoy consuming that sort of stuff. In terms of what I enjoy writing, I feel like not only am I better at like writing those sort of like fantasy adventure type stories, but I just have a lot more fun writing those. And I feel like if I were to keep their story the way it is now, you would probably see like issues with it. Not that I'm like a perfect writer or anything, but I feel like the way that their story originally was, if I were to just continue writing it as is, there would be a lot of issues with it, and I think all of the characters in the story in the world would just suffer for it. Another big change that has happened over the years is, I guess, the ratings of the stories. That might be the best way I could put it. And before I decided to change the characters and the story, overall, this was the youngest cast I had. And it makes sense because I made Andy when I was 16 and the rest of the characters came soon after. And originally, Andy was 17, Luca and Rory were 18, Sawyer, Mabel, Cairo. They were all like 16, 17. And this is another example of there being a difference between what I enjoy watching and what I enjoy writing. Like they were all high school students originally, right? They were all like juniors, seniors in high school. And while I can enjoy like reading comics or watching anime or watching movies that have those like teenage characters in them and they're just going along with their high school drama bullshit, I don't like writing that stuff anymore. And as the years go on, I find that I just enjoy writing older and older characters just bit by bit. Like I said, I was 16 when I made Andy and the gang, so aside from the adults and the children, they were all like between the ages of 16 and 18. And then a little while ago when I redesigned Andy, I said that all of the characters were, aside from the children, were 18 and above. So they were like between like 18, 19. And at the time of me redesigning Andy, I think, how old was I? I think I was like 19, 20? Like 19 turning 20, something along those lines. I don't remember exactly when. But, and now I'm 21 and I've aged them up yet again. Now, aside from the children, everyone is like 21 or above, and my personal age probably has a lot to do with this, but generally speaking, I really like writing a more like older cast. I just don't vibe with having a super young cast anymore. Obviously, I still have children characters, even though everyone in this story have been aged up. Kennedy Quinn and Hadia have stayed the same age. They are still 5 and 14. But aside from the occasional child, teenager, preteen character here and there, I just prefer to have a cast of grown-ups, I guess. And I said that my own personal age probably has a lot to do with it, and now that I think about it, that's most definitely the case. When I made Aurora, I was 11, she's like 10, and then when I made Andy and the gang, I was 16, and they were all between the ages of 16 and 18. When I started writing my webcomic characters, throughout the time of me working on it, I started writing when I was 18. Aside from Noe, the youngest person is Lux, who is 18, and then the oldest is Delaney and Lo, who are both 25, and I am now 21, still working on that story, so those are still characters that I enjoy working on. I started working on Arietta, Robin, and that whole universe a lot more when I was like 19, 20. All of the characters are between the ages of 20 and 22. Whatever age I am at the time of me making a character is usually like the age range for my characters. And I'm sure that like by the time that I'm 30, I'll probably be making a lot of characters in their 30s. I always have used art as a way to either cope with whatever I was going through or have something to relate to. And I think that the whole high school thing is something that's a great example for it. Andy and the whole gang were in high school, and a lot of their plot and storyline had to do with them being in high school, and I was in high school at the time of me making that. I was a junior in high school when I first started really working on their story. And now as a 21-year-old, I don't like writing about high school anymore. I've served my time. I don't want to go back. While I am 21 and I don't make stories about like doing taxes or something, I just do find myself enjoying writing older cast members, and I talked about the ratings a little bit, and kind of what I mean by that is like at the time of me making Andy's story, I enjoyed a lot of content that was like all ages, not necessarily like a children's content, but anything that was all age inclusive and PG-13. And then after that, I moved on to enjoying like 16 plus content, and now I don't focus a whole lot more on ratings, but I do enjoy more mature content, whether that's like more mature jokes, more mature like storylines or anything like that. That's just what I enjoy now. And while there isn't necessarily an exact correlation, there is some correlation of like a cast's age and a general rating for the story. And it's harder for me to make a story that I enjoy while having a younger cast, because a lot of what I do enjoy is like more adult themes now because I am an adult. If I was to keep Andy's story the way that it is now, where there's a lot of stuff including high school and like teenage issues, I guess, and keeping their ages between the ages of 16 and 18, it's not something A, that I relate to, and B, that I enjoy making. And I know that there is a bit of a joke online of people making fun of teen movies or like teen shows where they make fun of how men in their 40s writing like teenagers and trying to like be all hip and cool. And it's not that I'm old, I am only 21, but I still do think that there would be that disconnect between like the type of people who would be consuming that kind of content and then me as a writer making that content. And it would come off as very disingenuine, which is not what I want or what anyone really wants, I guess, with their stories and their writing. And for anyone wondering, because I had Aspen, Milo, and Bishop also be in high school. Nobody's in high school anymore. I think Bishop was 17, maybe Aspen too, I don't know. At this point in time, they're all like 18, 19. I haven't settled on exact ages for them at the moment, but nobody's in high school now because fuck high school. I know education is important, but my god, fuck high school. I talked about this a while ago when I was talking about my target demographic for my art and my videos and my comics that I'm working on. It's not that everything I want to do is going to be like super explicit, rated M for mature, but like it's more of just whenever I want to talk about more mature things or draw more mature things. I felt limited by not really talking about who my target demographic is, which it's anyone older than 18, by the way. So then that way I don't feel like pressured or at the very least awkward talking about that stuff and expressing those sorts of sides of myself. And it's kind of the same way with my art. It's not that everything I want to do is going to be super explicit, super mature for adults only, but I don't want to feel limited in what I can express about myself, and I don't want to feel pressured to, what's the right words? Whatever, we'll just abandon that thought. And whenever I do want to include those sorts of things in my drawings or my art, obviously I feel kind of limited in what I can and can't do whenever I have a cast as young as those characters were. Just to make it something that I enjoy making more. Aging up the cast to be more of my age is what's best, and that always happens. These characters always end up just being whatever age I am. I'm gonna be 40 and they're all gonna be 40. And I can't keep doing this. I know that. I can't just keep changing my characters. I can't just keep making them older, because at some point I do want to make all of these into like comics. When that time comes, I will need to settle on like an age and a plot and all of that. I guess just what I have been struggling with and probably will continue to struggle with is finding a balance of settling on like a concept for a story and a plot and like characters in terms of like their ages and whatever, and having fun. And I can't promise they won't change anymore, but I'm going to try to keep them the way that they are now being like 21 plus, and just kind of try and find that sort of settling and making finalized stuff. Sure, we'll go with it. And just having fun with the story, because the truth is I just want to enjoy this cast the way that I used to. I used to adore drawing them, I used to love thinking about their story, and I just don't anymore. I still have this very big attachment to them. I still love these characters, but it's definitely in a very different way. When I first made them at the time, it was more of because I was excited for them and I was excited to share more of their story, and now it's more of a nostalgic feeling, I guess, and I want to get more back to the feeling of being excited to share their story and talk about them more. And if I kept their original story and if I kept the characters the way that they used to be, their story would be bad. I'm just gonna say it. It would be bad. It would be very shallow. It would be very, it would follow the beats, I guess. Like, let's say I were to make this comic tomorrow. Like, let's say tomorrow I took their old story and the characters were how they were and the whole story was just available to read. I think you guys, as the readers, would definitely see that there would be a lot less passion in the story and I would have a lot less fun writing it. And I just think that that would really show. I think it would be really obvious, and I think that even if a story is like super stereotypical, like let's say the plot itself is really basic and the world itself is really basic and nothing is necessarily like innovative about it, I think that if there's a lot more fun and passion behind writing it, it just automatically becomes a lot more interesting to read, even if the story itself isn't anything phenomenal. And I think the best example that I can give in my personal opinion would be Fairy Tail. No, personal opinions aside, because I know Fairy Tail isn't always everyone's favorite. As a viewer who really liked the show, if I look at the beginning of Fairy Tail and even the middle of Fairy Tail, it's super fun to watch, and even though it's exactly what you would expect from, is it shonen? That sort of anime genre. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of magic, the whole power of friendship. Good guys always win. They fight the bad guys who are bad. And that's it. You know, each sort of story arc has its own plot, but it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect from a show like that, but like in the beginning and in the middle, there's a lot of heart behind it, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And then if we look at more of the end of Fairy Tail, a lot of Fairy Tail fans, including myself, see a lot of issues with it, and it's a lot less entertaining. And at that point, it was really obvious that the creator wasn't as interested in it. And fun fact about Fairy Tail, it was originally supposed to be like 10 volumes, and it ended at 63, so clearly there were some changes, and you could definitely tell that by the end he was really ready to just work on something else, which is why the ending of Fairy Tail fell flat, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of Fairy Tail fans. I think if I were to keep Andy's story and the world the way that it originally was, the entire thing would just kind of feel like the end of Fairy Tail, where it's really flat, way too predictable, and when it is predictable, it's not even fun to watch regardless. So I just really didn't want that for the story, and since the characters mean a lot to me, they definitely deserve a lot better. And it doesn't matter how creative of a plot I had, how fun of a world I had, I'm not having fun making that story anymore, and I think that that would definitely show, and I think that their story would only be so good if I kept it like that, and a lot of people would be able to pick up on the fact that I'm not having fun with it anymore. And it kind of hurt to admit that, because I was just very, very attached to how it was, and I had this odd attachment to it, even though I didn't like it. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if you guys know what I mean, but like in my head, it's always been the way that it was, and I've just gotten so used to it being that way, and thinking about how happy and excited 16-year-old me was to have this story, to have those characters, and then just not liking it anymore. Maybe it's stubbornness, I don't know. I'm a pretty stubborn person, maybe that's a part of it. Just what I really had to do for myself was to let myself let go of the story, I guess. I had to let myself admit that I wasn't having fun with it anymore, and let myself be willing to work on it. And another little bit of Oliver's Antics trivia for you. The entire reason that my webcomic universe even exists is because I really wanted to make a comic, but at that point I had no experience with writing comics or making comics, and I was too attached to my other stories to touch those, because I knew that there would be a lot of like technical mistakes, a lot of writing mistakes, a lot of burps, a lot of artistic mistakes. And so I made my webcomic universe basically as a test run. That's the entire reason that story exists. And even though I love that story and I'm attached to it in my own way, love those characters and I love that story and I'm super invested and attached, it's in a different way because I made that story as a way to like let myself make mistakes. I'm a lot less afraid to change things and to admit when something doesn't work. And I'm really glad that I did that, because can you imagine if I started with this story and then like made it would be hot garbage. That's kind of where I am with, mostly with this story, but to some extent my other characters and my other universes, just letting myself change them and not be afraid to do that, and just having that sort of relationship I have with my webcomic universe where I'm invested and I loved them, but I know that they're not perfect, and allowing myself to make those changes. It does apply to pretty much all of my characters, but mostly this one. And I do think that it is important to say in this video that like, I know you guys are all very eager to read these stories, and you know, it became a little bit of a joke on my channel of, where's the comic? You said it would be out by now. And while it's fun and while we can joke about that kind of stuff, I do just want to like let it be known that I'm also excited for you guys to read these stories and to learn about the characters, but I also need time for them, because they are characters that I really like and really want to do justice to. I need time to work on their stories and work on their character arcs and all of that stuff. Especially this one. Because stuff like this can happen where you think about the story for so long and then you just don't like it anymore. But I know that most of you are very, very lovely and want me to have fun with my art and my characters and my stories. And maybe this is just another thing where I'm thinking too much about it and none of you guys will care, but you know, it is what it is. I overthink constantly. It's who I am. And I have been thinking about their story, and I'm happy to say I am coming up with more ideas for it. I'm playing around with some different ideas and some different concepts that I'm really excited about. One thing that I've definitely thrown around a lot in my head is having them take place in a bit more of a futuristic world, so that's fun. I've been thinking about it, and it's an idea that I really, really love, but, you know, I'll tell you more about that when I'm ready. And, you know, thought I'd give you the heads up. Shit's gonna be different from here on out. By the way, if anybody's wondering about, like, the new character ages, like I said, Kennedy Quinn is still 5, Hadia's 14, Andy, Sawyer, Mabel, Cairo are all 21, Luca and Rory are 22, Cass and Asim are 28. For anyone wondering, there you go. So if this was helpful to anybody, let me know. I know that I'm definitely not the only person who struggles with this sort of thing. I'd like to think it's fairly common, especially for people like me who are both artists and writers who are working on comics and all of that. And if you're like me and you have a shit ton of characters that are really hard to keep track of. But let me know if this video was helpful to you at all, or if you found yourself in a similar situation. Let me know if you are upset with me for changing their story, I guess. We can fight about it, but like kindly. And let me know if you're excited to hear about where their story is going. Like I said, I've definitely been playing around with some ideas and I'm really excited to share that with you all, but once I'm ready. At the end of this month is the final OCs for my Witch universe. So, not saying anything, but just pointing that out. And yeah, I think that's about all I have for you for this video, so if you liked it, give this video a thumbs up. I didn't talk about the art at all, but I just want you all to know it took me 17 hours, so tell me you like it, even if it's a lie. Let me know if I said anything remotely helpful in this video, and also let me know if you have any advice for sort of getting rid of that unhealthy attachment, I guess would be the best way to put it, to your stories and allowing yourself to make those changes, because it's something that I'm trying to get better at, but I'm definitely not perfect. So if you have any advice for that, let me know. I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure other people reading the comments would definitely appreciate it too. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Oliver. I'm sorry that this was your first video where I'm just whining about me. But if you want to see more art from me, maybe consider subscribing. I would really, really appreciate it. We have a lot of fun over here. I love sharing my characters and my stories with you all, even though it unintentionally creates these problems where I feel like everything has to be perfect on the first try and I can't change anything. But if you want to be a part of that, hit that subscribe button. I post new videos every single Wednesday and additional bonus videos whenever I can. Come on over here, we'd love to have you. And if you want to see more from me, you can follow me on social media. Those will be on screen now and linked in the description box below. Mostly post my art to Instagram, but also occasionally Twitter. Go follow me over there if you want. Tell me you came from this video, I guess. I'll say hi to you. And if you want to see more videos of mine, they'll be on screen now and linked in the icon for you to check out if you want. I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week, hopefully. Bye.